Hello and welcome to Spokane County Spotlight. I'm Commissioner Al French, and my guests today are Maggie Yates, our Regional Law and Justice Administrator, and the Honorable Judge Maryann Moreno from the Spokane Superior Court. Maggie and Judge Moreno, welcome to the program.
Thanks so much for having us.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, today our topic is about the Spokane Regional Law and Justice Council, also known as the SRLJC. So before we get started with that, however, I'd like to ask Maggie if you could share with us a little bit about your background and what you bring to the Spokane community.
Gladly. Well, I'm originally from Spokane. I'm a proud graduate of Lewis and Clark High School. After I completed high school, I went to undergrad in Minnesota, where I studied cultural anthropology and international studies and played soccer there. And then I went to New Orleans, Louisiana, where I served as the senior investigator on a class action lawsuit against the jail there. So that was an incredibly intense and formative professional experience for me, and it really solidified my commitment to working toward a criminal justice system that's equitable and fair for the entire community. So with that perspective, I went to law school at UCLA in California, where I focused my studies on public interest law and policy. Once I earned my law degree, I moved to Virginia and practiced for a bit with a legal aid organization, and then I eagerly moved home to accept the position as the Regional Law and Justice Administrator. And I've got to say that I'm incredibly thrilled to be joining a team of stakeholders across the county and the city and in the community who are as committed as I am to pursuing a healthier and safer region.
Well, we're lucky to have you back with us, and so thank you for joining us. So now tell us about the SRLJC and what is your role as a Regional Law and Justice Administrator?
The SRLJC, or the Spokane Regional Law and Justice Council, is a council that was created under state law, and it effectively serves as an advisory body. It is comprised of justice leaders and stakeholders from both the county and the city, and they provide guidance on initiatives related to criminal justice reform. So part of my job is managing and facilitating that council, and then I also get to manage grants that touch on criminal justice reform and also facilitate other efforts that fall outside of grant funding. And a big part of my job, Al, is collecting and disseminating information to stakeholders at the county and the city and in the community to ensure that our leaders are making decisions on behalf of our community with the best information available.
Terrific. So, Judge Moreno, could you give us an overview of your background and the role that you play at Spokane Superior Court Judge?
Sure, and I want to thank you for inviting me here. I've enjoyed taking part in these types of information dissemination, and I also want to say that we're very lucky to have Maggie Yates joining us. As you know, we've known each other for quite some time. I've been on the Superior Court bench since 2003, so January of 2019, that'll be 16 years. And during my time on the bench, I have engaged in many different roles. Right now, my rotation is a trial court judge, but I have also handled many other types of dockets, such as drug court, and I've been the presiding judge for the Superior Court for 4 years. I've also been very active in criminal justice reform, and as a presiding judge, between the years of 2011 for 4 years after that, we started a really robust criminal justice reform participation aspect with regard to inviting all of the stakeholders involved in justice in the city and the county of Spokane to get together and see how we could do things better.
Terrific. And so what would, in your opinion, what's the level of engagement you're seeing among the stakeholders at the city and the county?
Well, with the institution of the SRLJC that Maggie just referred to, I believe that was in 2014, we saw for the first time situations where stakeholders, and when I say stakeholders, what I mean are the prosecutor, the public defender, the chief of police, the Spokane County Sheriff, the Board of County Commissioners, and all of the other major players in the criminal justice system come together for the first time. And they came together to share information, to talk about how their departments each handle their own duties, and to see how, again, we could do justice, a better job of justice reform in Spokane.
Yeah, and the one thing for the benefit of the viewers is that the criminal justice system here in Spokane County, like it is in all the counties in the state of Washington, is composed by a number of elected officials. So it's not as though the the court system, the criminal justice system is totally under the authority of the judges or the county commissioners or the sheriff. We all share in this joint effort to try and make our community safer and stuff. So it is a team sport. So Maggie, can you give us a little inside perspective on something that I know that you've been working on very hard, and that's the Safety and Justice Challenge Grant?
Absolutely. The Safety and Justice Challenge is a grant awarded by the MacArthur Foundation, and it is designed to support jurisdictions working to safely reduce jail size, jail population, and meaningfully address racial and ethnic disparities across the criminal justice system, and also help cultivate community engagement. This is an initiative that started long before I arrived. Judge Moreno has been one of our local leaders spearheading the initiatives, and we recently just submitted an application for the third and final phase of funding from MacArthur. So if we're awarded a third and final phase, we'll be able to pursue additional strategies intended to help us achieve the objectives of the grant that I just outlined. And some of those strategies is improved data collection and transparency, improved case processing, which Judge Moreno is involved in, continuing to address our racial and ethnic disparities. And I think that because we have a core group of elected officials at the table really committed to safely reducing our jail population, we'll be able to pursue these reforms where possible, even if we are not able to receive full funding.
Well, I know that the community is very grateful. I know that I am for the level of commitment that Judge Moreno has demonstrated and the involvement of trying to make our criminal justice system better. Clearly, you've got the experience and the knowledge, but more importantly, the commitment to this. And kudos to you, and thank you for all of your energy. So, so in your opinion, what has been the most significant accomplishment that the region's seen out of the law and justice system since receiving the grant?
Well, let me just say also that change within the criminal justice system does not happen overnight. And as you know, there's that saying, the wheels of justice spin very slowly. And it's very true. When you have a culture that's ingrained to do business a certain way, it's very difficult at times to change that culture. And you pointed out that there are very many stakeholders. There's lots of elected officials that have to be on the same page in order to get anything done and to make any changes. But I think probably the greatest achievement we've been able to gain with regard to the Safety and Justice Challenge is the funding, quite frankly, that was received. We were lucky enough to be given I believe it was $1.75 million, and that's a lot of money, and we needed that money. And what we did with that money was to create a robust pretrial services department so that we could better screen people coming in, determine what their risk level was, and then be able to give the judges, who are the decision makers, a better understanding of who this individual is, whether or not they should be released, and whether or not they should be detained. As you know, we have a problem, not just in Spokane County, but throughout the nation with over-incarceration of individuals. And I don't want you to think that I believe that everyone should be released, because clearly there are individuals in our jurisdiction that do need to be detained. But there are very, very many people who simply cannot afford to post bond. What might seem like a drop in the bucket to us is a lot of money to a lot of people. So we need to be able to understand who these people are. We need to be able to keep the community safe, and at the same time make release decisions that continue to keep our jurisdiction safe, but better allow people to be released and actually a better use of our very limited resources.
Well, and you mentioned it in your comments that our goal is to keep the community safe. And that doesn't necessarily mean that we need to throw everybody that's done something bad in jail, because if somebody is suffering from mental illness and they just don't have their medication available, it doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It means that they don't have their medication. And so putting them in jail is not going to solve the medication problem. What we need to do is get them into treatment, get them access to the medication necessary to allow them to live a healthy and productive life. So you're exactly right. The jail is the last stop in the criminal justice system. That's, in my mind, that's where we put people that really need to be incarcerated because they want to do bodily harm or they want to do damage to our community and stuff. So if people want to learn more about this criminal justice system and the Law and Justice Council and stuff, where can people go to learn more about the department and what we're doing?
There's a few places folks can go. One is our website, which you can look up at SpokaneCounty.org. Another is on our Facebook page, which you can follow us on, and you can search for that at Spokane Law and Justice Department. And we work hard to post all of our meetings on our Facebook page, as well as any upcoming events. And that's just one of the many ways that we're trying to engage in outreach to community, and would welcome any feedback from folks about other opportunities to keep our community members up to date on our efforts.
Well, so when we reinstituted the Regional Law and Justice Council, that was a board action, as the judges mentioned earlier, but the composition of this council is something that the Board of County Commissioners determines. And what we tried to do is make it broad enough to where it could be reflective of the entire community. So we have representatives from the valley and the county and the city as partners with us, but we also have community partners out there that we deliberately appoint to try and be a conduit so that citizens can provide that kind of input, that kind of perspective to help inform us so that we can make better decisions as we go through this. So, one topic that's been getting a lot of national attention here lately is pre-arrest diversion programs. So in Spokane, what is Spokane Region doing in this arena?
There's a few things that Spokane is doing in terms of pre-arrest diversion. One is this month in December, we'll be hosting the International Association of Chiefs of Police Diversion Conference. So we'll be able to hear from experts, we'll be able to learn about best practices and what the current research says, and then incorporate that into our local practices. We also have a couple of pilot programs with our law enforcement, both at City Police and with our Sheriff's Department, where mental health professionals ride along with law enforcement officers in order to help de-escalate crises when folks really just are in need of treatment, and then connect them with services rather than placing them in jail where they can't access appropriate care and treatment. And then finally, and one of the more exciting things that I get to work on is the mental health crisis stabilization facility that the county is building. And that is going to be a facility where law enforcement who come into contact with an individual in a crisis, instead of taking them to jail, can take them to this facility, again, to receive treatment and care, help them stabilize, decrease recidivism, and increase our public safety. And of course, decrease the burden on our jail from incarcerating folks that really just need supportive services in the community. And then in addition to those pre-arrest diversion programs, we also have diversion programs run by our prosecutor, and we also have mental health diversion run through community services in collaboration with detention services. And then we also, as a region, are investing in community-based services so that folks can access those either when they're reentering the community from jail, again, in order to help them stabilize, or before they ever have contact with law enforcement in order to help them lead a safe life for themselves and for their families in the community.
So, Judge, what's your perspective on the diversion programs that have been contemplated and also put into place?
Well, needless to say, just like any other community throughout the United States, the criminal justice system seems to be bursting at the seams. I mean, the more law enforcement you have out on the street, the safer our community arguably is, but that leads to more people in the pipeline or in the system. Some of these folks don't really need to be there. They've either made a bad decision or they were under the influence and made a bad decision or something like that. You talked about mental health issues. And so, again, some of these people don't need to be part of the system. They can be safely diverted out of the system either beforehand, or they can be diverted to a mental health facility or somewhere else other than getting locked into the criminal justice system. As you know, once you're in the criminal justice system, it can be a hard place to get out of, and particularly if you are living in poverty or if you have health issues. The system is not really designed to deal with any of those or to fix anything. So if we can divert them into systems that are more, have the more wraparound service type notion, the better off they're going to be and the better off our community is going to be.
Yeah, the one thing that a lot of folks in the community don't fully understand or appreciate is that the people that are in our jail cannot be there for longer than a year. Anybody that's got a sentence longer than a year ends up in the penitentiary for the state. So what that means is that whoever is in our jail is eventually going to come out of our jail and get back into the community. So how do we want to make sure that when they get back into the community, they have an opportunity, the skill sets, the tools, the resources to be successful? Because ultimately what we want to do is make sure that everybody has a path to success and a path for self-sufficiency. And so that's very critical. The other part of the diversionary program, from a dollars and cents standpoint, is if we arrest somebody that has a mental challenge and they end up on our jail, that means that the county is responsible for paying for the medical bills associated with that incarceration. If, however, they can be diverted to a mental health treatment facility like the stabilization facility, they can still be treated with Medicaid dollars as opposed to county dollars. So from our standpoint, we can provide better service to those that need it, and we're not spending county resources to do that. We're actually spending Medicaid dollars. So from a business model standpoint, it makes sense, but also from a community standpoint, it's the right thing to do. When you don't want to incarcerate people that are just at a point where they need help, they don't need incarceration. So what role has the community representation played in the planning and implementation of the Regional Law and Justice Council reforms?
Well, as you mentioned, we do have 4 community members who are appointed to the Spokane Regional Law and Justice Council. And we also have a community member chair our Racial Equity Committee. And we have an immense and impressive amount of community participation in our racial equity work. We also supported a community engagement grant that we submitted with our Phase 3 application to MacArthur, and that grant was designed and drafted by a group of community leaders, and we were really excited to support that and submit it to the foundation. And that grant, again, is intended to invest in our community and cultivate collaboration between our community members and the county. And then we also recently established a community advisory board for a new initiative with regard to a risk assessment tool. And so we'll have a group of community members help oversee the implementation of that tool and provide their insight, their perspectives to ensure that we are implementing the tool in a manner that, again, is safe and equitable.
So Spokane County has recently joined in the adoption of a new public safety assessment tool. So for those that may not be aware, can you describe how this tool works?
The public safety assessment is a nationally validated risk assessment tool that is non-proprietary, so it's very transparent. And what it is a tool to allow judges like Judge Moreno support their decisions about pretrial release. So when someone is booked into jail, the judges have to set a bond for them or decide they don't need a bond, they can be released, or they might even release them with some supervision conditions. So this pretrial assessment, the public safety assessment, will give the judges more information to help them make that decision. It considers 9 factors, looking at the risk of an individual's failure to appear for court, likelihood of committing new criminal activity, and likelihood of committing new violent criminal activity. And the only demographic factor that the tool considers is age, and then it produces a score for the judges, again, to take into consideration. And the Community Advisory Board will help us, again, oversee the implementation of that and make sure that these pretrial release decisions are made in a manner that's consistent with our legal framework and the presumption of innocence, which Judge Moreno can speak more to.
So what is being done locally to address the racial equity efforts that are underway?
Well, as Maggie stated, we do have a committee that is comprised solely of community members who are interested in criminal justice reform, and they've been very outspoken and very active in assisting us, and we appreciate their efforts, and we have a lot to learn from them. And they've been very active. But I want to go back, if you don't mind, and speak
Sure.
to just the tool, because the use of risk tools has gotten some there's been some controversy over the use of them, and I just want to make clear that really what a risk tool does is it assesses risk, and so basically it assesses risk, and what it does is it basically you put in all of the answers to the 6 questions, or the 9 questions, I can't recall how many there are, and it gives you a number, and that number is something on a sliding scale of where you're going to assess risk. But I want to make clear that that is just a small piece of how a judge should be and will be, at least in Spokane County, making release determinations. And I want to also remind everyone that when somebody is arrested for a crime, the law requires that we as judges presume that the right thing to do is to release them. It's only the addition of other factors that then will allow us to make a decision that will require a bond or some kind of detention. So, as I like to say, the risk tool is just a small tool in the toolbox that we use. There's lots of other information that we learn about an individual when they're first arrested that assist us in making those decisions.
Yeah. So another component of the law and justice reform efforts has been improvement to case processing. So I understand that these efforts have been led by you, Judge.
Right.
So you want to talk a little bit about those?
Yeah, and I've been trying to work on this ever since I've become a judge, even back before that when I was an attorney. Again, as I say, the wheels of justice can tend to turn very slowly. And, obviously, if you have an overcrowding situation in your jail, generally speaking, our jail is comprised mainly of individuals who are awaiting trial in Superior Court, and that's my court. So I take responsibility for that, and I own the fact that we need to be moving these cases quicker. So criminal case processing really is simple. It speaks to the time it takes for a case to be resolved, and that resolution is either by a plea or dismissal or a trial. We have state standards that suggest to us how much time a case should take, and so we are working on, I have a small group of judges on my bench who are very passionate about this topic as well, and we are working in phases to kind of change the culture that we've been operating under in Spokane County, and we're trying to reach those time standards, and we figure and we know that if we start to use all of the different reforms, the 1,000 small sanities, as I like to call them, that we can make the community safer, we can reduce the jail population as well.
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, this is not something that is just unique to Spokane County. I mean, the entire nation is engaged in this process for a variety of different reasons. Cost, fairness, equity, justice, and stuff. And so I think the fact that MacArthur's identified Spokane County as one of those to be part of this national effort is a real tribute to the work that's already taken place, but also I think their confidence in our ability to continue to push this national initiative forward. So what do you see as the most significant challenge facing the criminal justice reform work?
Wow. Well, I mean, in general, criminal justice is difficult because of the nature of the individuals who are in the system. So the criminal justice is a system that isn't just focused on the defendant, it's also focused on the victim. So, going back to the case processing piece of it, swift and certain sanctions has sort of been the mantra across the nation. And if someone commits a crime, the sanction should be identified quickly and it should be dealt with quickly. And that is not just for the benefit of us or the system, but it's also for the benefit of the victims who are, they're due justice. And, if someone is the victim of a crime, they need to be able to have faith in the system that their case is going to move through the system quickly. So the nature of the individuals that we have, not just in our jurisdiction, but in the criminal justice system that are actually the folks that are charged with crimes, have significant challenges. They have, as you identified, mental health issues, they have drug issues, they have housing issues, they have poverty issues, they have family issues, they have all sorts of issues that, frankly, the criminal justice system is not designed to deal with.
Right. Well, and when we talk about the diversion programs, there's also a new program that is Insight that the city of Spokane is putting into place, where all of the social service programs that are available in the community are now trying to locate on one site. Right now, if you need to talk to 3 or 4 different agencies, you can be chasing all over the county trying to get those resources. And a lot of folks don't have the opportunity, don't have the access to resources necessary to just do this journey. So by bringing all those resources together in one location, it allows for us to be able to assist people that are in that stage where they need help before they run out of options and then find themselves on the wrong side of the law. So there's a number of different initiatives that we're experimenting with here, and following the models of other communities, and in some cases creating the models that other communities will follow us in. So it's exciting work and stuff. So we're kind of reaching the end of the program. Is there anything that you'd like to share that's kind of you think would be critical to the conversation? We will obviously come back and talk more about this. This is one, the criminal justice system represents 75% of the total budget for the county. This is what we invest the majority of the taxpayers' money in, because everybody in the community not only has an expectation but a right to be safe in the community and stuff, and we're doing our best to try and make sure that that happens. So the Judge or Maggie, any last comments you'd like to share with the audience?
You mentioned the Envision Center that the city is building, and complementary to that, we also have a reentry pilot at the county that will match folks coming out of the jail with community health workers to take them to the Envision Center and other services as well. And I would just, again, echoing the judge's comments about the challenge of the criminal justice system, is about seeing it as a system within itself, but then also one of many systems that's influenced and informed by other areas like education, the economy, and housing. And so we need to zoom out a little bit and see how we can invest in these other resources and other needs in order to ensure that folks are having their needs met in the community without needing to come into contact with the criminal justice system. And I think given the excitement and engagement around this issue in the community, I'm very optimistic that we'll be able to do that.
Well, Maggie and Judge Moreno, I've really enjoyed this conversation, and I think that our viewers have too. So, but I'm afraid that we're out of time.
All right.
So we will re-engage at another time and get together and share more information with the audience. So I'd like to thank my guest, Maggie Yates, and our Regional Law and Justice Administrator, and the Honorable Judge Moreno from Spokane Superior Court for joining us here today. As a reminder, a video of today's Spotlight can be accessed on Spokane County homepage and on our Spokane County YouTube channel. I'd also like to remind our audience that Spokane County has a mobile app, Spokane County On the Go. The app can be downloaded for all Apple and Android devices. For more information, visit our webpage at www.spokanecounty.org. I'm County Commissioner Al French. Thank you for joining us today on the Spokane County Spotlight.